there's the poetry of New York. There's Hell's Kitchen. There's the Village.
Where I started.
There's jazz in the air in the Village still. It's one of the last cities you can actually, there in New Orleans, you actually hear music in the air.
Absolutely.
Harlem now has a big resurgence of jazz. And then, all the literary greats and all the great rock stars that came to New York and where Dylan used to hang. So I used to go explore those kind of things in New York City. Plus, back then when Ray's Pizza didn't suck, you could get a slice and a Coke for $3.50. You could
Those
you could
days
live
are
on
over.
that.
That's over now. Talk. I just did a video because I was walking in New York City and I grabbed the phone, no editing to it, vented New York style, just me being me really, and viral. And it's I spent all this time doing all these videos and all people want is you to just be your authentic self.
I did the same thing. I'm trying to do this because I'm new to it.
Right.
I'm like the last bus from television. and then I didn't do social media, nothing. And then I try to put something out and it's my stand up and is that good enough? And then me and Reno, who was my partner on Mike and Molly, we went to Earth, Wind and Fire. And during an episode, we sang September for Earth, Wind and Fire, so we got to be friends with them. And we were just singing at the bowl to that song, 1 million views. And you're like, how is that? Why am I trying? Why am I trying?
Yes.
Why am I trying? I should no longer try.
No.
Art is dead. We're just trapped in somebody's home movie.
This is the lesson, guys. Quit doing all that work.
Stop trying. Thank you for the coffee.
Yes, absolutely. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee Talk. I am so excited for today's guest. I've asked him for months to come in. He was
so
traveling the world.
Thank you for having me.
And here he is, Billy Gardell.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here. I had the pleasure of meeting you we were working on new stuff at Flappers when I first came back because I'd been away for 3 years. I stopped doing it for 3 years.
Wow, I had no idea.
No one did.
Yeah.
And well,
I'm new to LA.
At the end of, I did, Mike and Molly, which was my show, and then I thought that was over. Then I was lucky enough to get another show. I don't know who that happens to. Very lucky, blessed. And I did Bob Hart Sabashola, and in the middle of that, the COVID thing hit. And so at the time, I was 380 pounds. I had type 2 diabetes. That thing was outside waiting for me, that first wave. So I stopped touring because I couldn't do that. We were filming without an audience, and I figured I'm going to take this time to get healthy. So I changed everything. But when I came back, I hadn't done it for 3 years, and then
nobody recognized you.
I made myself unrecognizable, and then the whole business went from television to the internet, and I was like, I'm just starting from ground zero, which is kind of Gen X, and I kind of like that. Mm-hmm. But I remember running into you at Burbank, and you were very kind, and I was just, in there trying to bang on those jokes.
And you were, still lit up the room. You were.
I do all right. I'm all right. I've always been one molecule off of being a great comedian. Whatever, I'm one particle. I want Tony Stark to figure out what that strand is. I just miss it by one, you know what I mean?
He was hilarious. And it was so good. And it was so great to see because I got to be honest, sometimes people get TV shows or I'm new to LA only a year and a half and I get so excited to see somebody and then I'm like, no.
Yeah, they stink.
And I'm always, I can find the positive in almost anybody and I'm like, oh my God. But
actually, that's one of the reasons I did your cast. I like your energy.
Thank
you. You put out a good vibe. You put out a kind vibe, and that's nice.
What I want, yeah.
Well, I tell everybody now, I tell them young guys, man, you want to be a punk rocker now? You want to be a rebel? Be kind.
100%.
Because it is in short supply right now.
100%.
Short supply, so.
Yeah, listen, it's the old motto of just be kind and do good work. And then and social media apparently is the other part that they left out.
Yeah, that's the part that I hate. Like I said, I just feel like we're all trapped in a home movie. Yeah. It's terrible. Here's Uncle Phil with okay, great. How long is this going to go on? Yes. Forever. From now until you die, this movie doesn't stop. So my life has been reduced to a 10-second clip. It's sad.
It is. It's truth, though. It's there's so much validity. But a lot of people on Coffee Talk we love starting with the beginning.
No one says coffee like New Yorkers. No. Coffee.
It's the reason why
How do you spell that? C-A-W?
C-A-W-F-E-E.
Coffee.
Coffee.
I do have an affinity for New York. New York taught me such a humbling lesson early in my career. I started stand-up in 87. So by the time I got my show in 2010, My manager said a very funny thing. The comedy community was actually very supportive, my peers. And my manager said a very funny thing. He said, you've been doing it long enough when even the bitter comics are happy for you.
You got
And so I received a lot of warmth, which was nice. They felt like I had earned my spot. And but New York was just so important to me early in my career because I started at 17 in 87, and I was in Florida, and I thought I was this funny kid, and I'd won a couple stupid contests or whatever. So by 1990, I'm like, I should go to New York. And New York handed me a shovel-sized scoop of humble pie
As it
that
will.
I desperately needed at that time because it truly humbled me and made me realize you're not even close to being a good comic yet. So I survived in New York for about a year and a half, 2 years before it sent me packing. But it made me go away and reset and really look at, okay, what do you really want to do? What do you really want to say? So New York was like, it was so important. And it was great because I got to go back there years later as the star of a TV show. And I made peace with it. I'm like, all right, I'm not going to mess with you.
Years after
You don't mess
experience,
with
right,
me.
yeah.
Exactly. But there's a respect that comes from those streets and just trying to hustle and survive in New York. But then there's also... there's the poetry of New York. There's Hell's Kitchen. There's the Village.
Where I started.
There's jazz in the air in the Village still. It's one of the last cities you can actually, there in New Orleans, you actually hear music in the air.
Absolutely.
Harlem now has a big resurgence of jazz. And then, all the literary greats and all the great rock stars that came to New York and where Dylan used to hang. So I used to go explore those kind of things in New York City. Plus, back then when Ray's Pizza didn't suck, you could get a slice and a Coke for $3.50. You could
Those
you could
days
live
are
on
over.
that.
That's over now.
It's
settled. I'm going back to New York, guys. Billy came into the studio. I moved out here a year and a half ago, and after that, poetry, he just
There is. But I
spewed.
find that in Los Angeles, too. I find that if you can't embrace the city you're living in, I don't think you'll ever make it. My wife gave me great advice. I was about done out here because I'd hit I don't know, like you come to town. Back then, you come to town and people kind of know your name from showcases and maybe you get a development deal or something. Those don't exist anymore. But you kind of became a name. Then it kind of inserted you into the business. Then you book a part or two here or there. And then it just went dry. And then there was that thing where the comedy clubs all had their little recession during the housing crisis.
Yes.
So but I had the thing that I think a lot of East, I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania,
which
as you
is
know.
east.
Yeah, well, like I said, we're like the equator for the Midwest and the Northeast corridor. So we have influences from both. But I came out here with what I think a lot of East Coasters have. And rightfully so. I'm not saying it's wrong. We bitch about the food. We bitch about there's not a familiarity to what we know growing up when you grow up in a neighborhood city. And so I did a lot of bitching. Can I say that on you?
Yes.
Okay. And so my wife very wisely said to me, okay, because I was going to leave L.A. and go get a job on radio back in Pittsburgh with my buddies, Randy Bauman and Billy Crawford. And they're on this DVE. I think you may have you done them or not?
No.
You need to do that.
Okay.
You would kill in Pittsburgh, by the way. They would love you. But they were going to give me a gig back there because my marriage was in trouble at the time, and we're solid now. We're so good now. We know we're going to go to the end of the line.
That's what
now.
happens.
But it
this
goes
is
up and down,
up
right?
and down.
Up and down. So we were in our rough time, and she said, look, for the next year, don't say nothing bad about Los Angeles. The word she is, my wife is more eloquent than me. She said, why don't you try to grow where you planted? Put your roots down. Put your roots down. Embrace this place. And then if you do that with abandon for a year and nothing happens, then we can move back and you can bitch about it every day. I said, all right, well, that's a deal. I'm going to hold you to that. But I really actively did that. And when that happened, I started to search for the things about Los Angeles that were historical and cool and got into some of the culture that we have out here. And then all of a sudden, the city kind of embraced me back. So, one thing I've learned about New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, if you don't embrace those cities, they will not embrace you, period. I believe there's an energy transference. I just do. I'm not a hippie, but I do believe in that.
I agree.
And I think if you can't wrap your arms around it, and you can still be sarcastic about, traffic or whatever, all that. Yeah. But you gotta grow where you planted. You got to put your roots down if you're truly going to give a place an opportunity to receive you. And I did that. And a year later, I had Mike and Molly, and she's never let me forget it.
I was going to say, how often do you get reminded of that?
Listen, Tara, when I'm on my deathbed, that'll be, I told you that, and then I'll go off into the next
if
world.
a wife's last words to her husband aren't, I told you so. Were you even ever married?
Were you even really
Come
here?
on, what?
Exactly.
Hello.
Exactly.
But so you said you left New York after a year and a half. Was it to LA?
No, I went. I started. My parents split right before high school, which is a wonderful time for a child to not have two parents. And then we had a couple dirtbag stepfathers, and one of these idiots had a genius idea of moving to Florida, starting a construction company. Well, that was bankrupt in about 3 months. But I have to say, I got my work ethic from Pittsburgh because that's a very neighborhood-driven.
So you were
place.
only there for.
I was there till I was about 13 or so.
Oh, okay.
14, and then
Florida.
Then the divorce, then down to Florida, and then my parents did what, I don't know, you probably go to jail for it now. They put us on a Greyhound bus in June, me, my brother, my sister, and they were 4 years younger than me, and we took a Greyhound to Pittsburgh. And then we would sit in the house at my dad's house and wait for him to get home with his wife at 5 o'clock. Gen X we were just all latchkey kids.
100%.
No one was watching
Nobody
us.
watched, right.
Which is why I think as the world is ending, we're kind of like, all right, that makes total sense to be a Gen Xer, and we get that. It's like the universe said, all right, listen, we're going to give you some really cool times. We're going to teach you how to survive on your own. You're going to have great music. But when you're at the prime of your adulthood, the world's going to end. So but it makes total sense to me. But so I would do the summers in Pittsburgh.
Nobody ever watched you as a kid, so you're
one,
right.
Nothing.
Yeah.
You could have died at any moment. But
how I wasn't in someone's van. It was like
that's what I'm saying.
I was this height my whole life, just walking around.
You had to survive.
Yeah.
And so we would do, like I said, the summers in Pittsburgh, and we would do the school year in Florida, which was torture. But in high school, I found this drama department and a teacher there that knew what I really wanted to do and was actually the first adult that took me serious. Like, that didn't go, you're going to be working at a gas station. We've seen your grades. Let's be honest. But this guy was like, no, if you really want to do this, let's talk about it. And I found a group of kids there that some of them are still working into the industry right now. And it was the first place I'd ever been where, because I grew up in that neighborhood thing, whereas if you say you like something, like say I go, I like Duran Duran. What? You stupid.
Right.
But this was the first group of kids I was ever around that if they didn't like something, they would go, oh, that's cool, man. That's not my thing, but that's cool. Like you didn't have to fit. And where I went to school in Florida was this high school called Winter Park High School. And it was a wealthy school, and it was one of those schools, you know how they take a scoop of poor kids so they can get their ribbons and their extra funding. Yeah. But they don't know they're scarring us for the rest of our lives. Because I was looking at 16-year-olds with BMWs, and I'm driving a $300 Vega.
You were like part of the fresh.
With a wheel
it was
that's
the fresh
wrong,
air fund for us in the Bronx. They used to ship us, ship them to like somewhere where they had grass in the summer. Yeah, that was basically what we did.
So, but I learned how to kind of dream down there, and that was a cool thing. So I kind of combined the work ethic with the dreaming, and
was it comedy or acting?
Stand up was I knew at 9 years old I wanted to be a stand up. I just knew, and my grandmother was very influential in my life. World War II generation, just as straight as could be, as good a person as I knew. I always say she was the best woman I ever knew until I met my wife. My wife has a compass that she still believes the world has hope, and it kind of keeps me alive.
Tell her to call me.
But she's a decent. She's a decent human being, and she's made my son a decent human being, and I just back her play, and that's a good balance for how we run our family. But I asked my grandmother at 9 if I could be a stand-up comic, and she said, "I absolutely think so if you're willing to work for it." That was that old school, you got to roll your sleeves up and go to work. But I respected her opinion so much that I just never asked anybody else. I was like, if Nan said it's all right,
that's it.
Who am I going to? I'm already at the boss level. Who am I going to? You know what I mean? So I never put my fears in anybody else's hands by saying, what do you think? I just kept thinking of her.
So many
you know
people.
What I mean? Yeah,
we're in
the
a
minute you do
business
that,
where
you're in trouble.
we feed off of everyone else's opinion
No,
of,
you can't.
of what we're doing.
You can't
right?
pay attention to what anybody else is doing, and if somebody gets something, be happy for them. It wasn't yours.
Always.
It's that
it's
simple.
like
simple.
it's so corny, but I always say I'm competing with myself at every level. It's
That's
like
it.
how I did last night,
Yeah.
what I did last year,
Yeah.
what I want. Like it's just I remember I opened for Miss Pat years ago, and she's a tough cookie.
Mm-hmm.
And I opened for her cold. No, she didn't know me. And then the next day she called me, and she was still in town. I had 2 more shows with her that night. She goes, "Do you want to go for breakfast?"
Right.
And I was like, "Yes." And because it was just not the read I got from her.
Sure.
And she said, "I'm gonna call JFL and recommend you. I did New Faces. I want to
Very
recommend
nice.
you. I'm gonna call this club." And I was like, "What's happening right now?" And she's like, "Everybody's afraid that there's not enough for everybody to eat." She's like, "You're funny." She's like, "I didn't know you before this, but you're funny." And it was just this thing of like, oh yeah, like sometimes even at the most veteran level, sometimes people just want to like gatekeep certain things.
Of course.
And it was just a really interesting, like it was my first real experience with, oh wow, that's so kind. That's the way it should be, and it's the way I, want to proceed with doing things. Even
Yeah, man.
at my level, yeah.
When you give back, you free yourself of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good place to be.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. I don't like my own brain.
Well,
Like I don't go in there alone.
Yeah,
It's
no,
a bad neighborhood.
It's a scary
I'm not
place.
doing that. Yeah.
Scary place.
So I find being a service and trying to be positive, trying to a little pat on the back here and there for people. That rewards me as well. I do that for greedy reasons too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It
I always
rewards
say,
me
yeah,
because if I'm not thinking about me, I'm pretty free during the
Right.
day.
It's a good feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you say that your upbringing? You said you wanted to do it at 9,
Mm-hmm.
but do you think like why stand up comedy at 9? Like what was the first influence?
There was a couple things. The first stepfather was a guy that liked to smack us around a lot, and I had learned from my father that humor was a way to diffuse. You get tired of crying, So so if you learn to kind of laugh your way through things, still acknowledging them, but that gallows humor sometimes can be a savior, especially for kids that don't have the Leave It to Beaver raising. You know what I mean?
100%.
So you develop that thing, and then you start to understand. Oh wow, people want to laugh, and they like to laugh, and now I'm getting this attention that I apparently didn't know that I needed so badly. And what happened for me in my journey was, at the beginning of my career, it was look at me, look at me, look at me, like we all start, or most of us. I don't want to speak for other people, but that's what it was for me. Like look at me, validate me, validate me. But then if you're lucky enough to get successful, you start to realize, or at least I did, that there's a other side of that where you're being of service to people.
100%.
And that's why I think comedy is so huge right now, is because people desperately need a place to laugh, and to laugh communally with strangers that you don't know. There's something medicinal in that you can't get anywhere else, I think.
100. I always wanted to be a comic. Started later than I thought I should have. Moonlighted while I had a day job as a counselor
Right.
for kids. So to me, when I gave that up because comedy finally was able to pay the bills,
Right.
I lost that element of, oh my God, I'm not doing a service anymore, until I really started speaking to audiences, and then being like, people would tell me how bad their day was, or that they had lost a child and that they came out. And I was like, okay, if I could make this not about Instagram,
Right.
and I hate to say it like that.
No, but that's part of the business.
And I could remember why I'm doing it.
Right.
Which is why I try to build everything around nostalgia and growing up, because I think people like to remember, people like to say,
and that's
you
your
brought
voice.
me home.
Like
right.
I've seen your stuff. That's who you are. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole key to all this. Don't try to chase what somebody else is. My father would always say, whenever if you're second in something, if you arrive second doing something somebody already did, he's like, you lost first. That's all that means. You have to find what you do, what you believe, how your take on it. Like we all have to play the same notes. It's like music, right? We talk about relationships. Some people talk about politics. Some people talk about drugs and alcohol. Some people talk about, current events. But it's all those things. That pot is all the same for all of us, but it's your take on it. And when you find that, then you find out who you are. And I think the authenticity is what makes really good comic.
And if you're listening to that, that is right there.
I think so.
The recipe for being successful, meaning you feel fulfilled. Success is.
But I don't think, too, like any great producer will tell you that when they search for talent, they're not looking for somebody who can mimic what's already happened. They're not looking for even though the movie industry doesn't seem to know how to do new things
They just
anymore,
keep doing
but
the same movies.
they'll get there.
Yeah.
They'll learn their lesson. You know, here's an idea. Stop making movies about the end of the world, okay? Give us a break.
We know it's
We're
coming.
good.
We
I
get
can look
it.
out the window and see that. I don't want to forage for water. Can you just, please, bring back Michael Keaton? But the idea is that you have to write what you want to hear without arrogance. This is my opinion. You have to write what you want to hear, and then your audience finds you because you're being authentic. But if you're just trying to do what you think the trend is, I don't see any success in that.
No.
I really don't. Plus, then you go to bed every night like, who am I trying to be?
Do you think that's what helped so much with Mike and Molly because it was from
100.
Yeah.
100. That show was a family of people you could have known down the street. And they were a magical cast. Melissa was amazing to work with. And we all, we were all 40 when we hit. So there was a lot of gratitude on that stage. There wasn't any
big egos.
No, we were so grateful because everybody had been kicked around enough to understand how lucky we were. And we had, it was the last great days of television. I mean, we had Chuck Lorre as the executive producer. We had the legendary director Jimmy Burrows the first 2 years, who directed Cheers and Taxi and Friends. And so to be a part of that last scoop of amazing time on television, I think we were all aware of it. And we were all very, very trusting of each other, which I think came through the screen. I think the show I did, Bob Hart's Abishola, is a beautiful show. And it says love conquers everything. And I'm very proud of it. I think Mike and Molly's a classic. I think we actually hit a classic out of the park for that, which was pretty amazing.
Did you know it was gonna be that?
No,
when
we knew it was going to be special. When we shot the pilot, the weird thing is the whole cast felt like we'd known each other for 10 years. We had 8 days of rehearsal before we shot the pilot, but there was some weird thing that clicked in, and we all still get together. At lunch once a month, we go to Vitello's. We take a little private room and we go in there and we talk about what hurts and whose kids aren't calling home. And it's a sweet thing to have taken a ride that was life-changing with these people that are still in my life. They're all like, and Reno, who played Carl, Officer Carl, like I'd known him 10 years before Mike and Molly. So that's why we could finish each other's sentence. We were the second. Chuck always said that's the second marriage of the show. That's Ralph and Ed.
That's funny.
That's Ralph and Ed.
Ralph and Ed so in the funny because I was going to mention
that's who they were. And so that was a joy to do that. And then, we had these amazing people, Lou Mastillo and Swoosie Kurtz and Rondi Reed. I mean, these were people that were, Rondi Reed, who played my mother, she came out of Steppenwolf, with Sinise and Malkovich. I mean, she's a big deal in theater. And a brilliant actress. And then Swoosie Kurtz, she's won a Tony. She's won a Grammy. She's not a Grammy. She's Tony and an Emmy. And Melissa, who had a show already, and she had the Gilmore Girls. And then Katie Mixon, who played the sister. She was out of Carnegie Mellon. And then Nyambi, that was his first gig. But he was Shakespeareanly trained in New York. Reno went to the School of Fame. And I came out of a comedy club kitchen. So those people, and I didn't pretend. That's right. You do your research, but I didn't come in with any arrogance about that. I said, "You guys got to help me." I'll ruin all this. I'm going to need your help. And so I think because I was honest with them, that set the temperature for the whole thing. And then me and Melissa really took that older brother sister role as leaders on the set, and we just wanted kindness on our set, and that came from Jim Burrows. He came in the night before the pilot to my dressing room. He said, "I'm going to tell you something, honey." If he likes you, he calls you honey. And he said, "I'm going to give you an old phrase. The fish thinks with the head. So if you come into the stage, you're number one on this call sheet. You come in here, you're arrogant, you're entitled, you're in a bad mood, that's going to reflect through your whole stage. If you come in here and you're kind and you're helping and you're caring and you're in a good spirits, even when you're not, that's going to reflect in your whole stage." And he goes, and the latter is how comedy is made. And I just never forgot that. Every day, no matter what I was carrying, I walked in there with the attitude the show was first, and it just kind of it caught on.
I mean,
you know?
talking to you for 20 minutes, like that was your character before that. But I think sometimes we need to be reminded
Yeah, 100
of
right?
things that we
100.
maybe already know, because it is a lot. I mean, it's
a
Mike
lot.
and Molly. Like your name's like it is.
Yeah.
It is. You are Mike.
Yeah.
In this scenario.
And believe me, I think for the first 4 weeks, I thought I was going to get fired. Like sometimes I had these great cameramen.
Is it because you just loved it so much that it was?
I loved it, but I also had that big thing of, is it going to be good enough? Am I going to do good enough? And then again, a very wise person told me, stop worrying about the outcome. The outcome will doom you.
Oh.
Stay in the work. Stay in the work. Do the work right. The outcome will take care of itself. And I had to hear that 1,000 times because I thought, I'm going to sink us. I'm not going to. But they were so loving with me. Like I remember, like I would always turn upstage, and I'd be, instead of looking at the audience, I'd be looking at the back of and Burroughs would come in gently, just move me towards the audience, and he'd go, "They're over there, honey." Little simple things. I had a great cameraman, Glenn Shimada, who was with Jimmy Burroughs for 30 years. Did all of it. And those guys were so sweet with me. Every now and then, like I didn't know when they're shooting over my shoulder to not block Melissa, you know what I mean? So every time I did it.
So this was your first.
Yeah, well, I mean, I had done stuff on a show called Yes Dear. And that was kind of like, I was a reoccurring character, but I'd never carried a show. So I didn't know, I had learned on Yes Dear, but I didn't really know the flow of things and how to, shots and all that. They were pretty good with me over there too. They helped me tremendously. Greg Garcia, I love, and Mike O'Malley was really great with me. But when I was out there in the middle of the scene, like every now and then I'd be like in the way of her shot, and the guys were great because like every time I do it, they go, and that meant move your big head to the left is what that meant. But they were great with me, and they allowed me to learn as I went through that. And I really took to it. And then once you let go and trust your partners, man, then
That's
you just can do some really cool stuff. We always
Because you feel so safe.
Yeah, and that's safety's where that creativity comes from. And we always looked for one honeymooners moment an episode. Jimmy called it we got to have one baby you're the greatest moment.
I have honeymooners written in my notes as a comparison.
We 100 did, because they were like, the reason Gleason could get away with all that obnoxious stuff is because you saw his heart when he had to apologize. He said, we need one of those moments every week in this so that people know why Molly loves you. And when we delivered that, then they knew that, okay, now we got a good episode. Now we got a good episode. Now we got a good episode. So it was really cool.
I wrote down, because I was like comparing Mike, because you think about it, it's like what really came before it in that time for like working class or a blue collar family, the way you look at things. And it was things like honeymooners or All in the Family or even Married with Children, but kind of you got all of those people. They were already together. They were already dysfunctional.
Right.
And it was kind of, we got to see like a love story.
Yes.
Kind of unfold and there be real like, struggles, fertility, everything else under the sun that could happen in life, but real love. And you got to watch
that was the
thing. Love. And I think that's what people need to hold on to and hang 100. On to when it's the majority of America.
100. That's it. Look, at the end of the day, all we're all looking for is a hand to hold, a roof to live under, and a job to pay for it. If you go that simple, but if you break it down that simple, you remember we're human. There's a humanity to that. And I get teased a lot for being a big softie, but I don't care. I'm 56. I know who I am.
Right.
I am that guy. And there was a genuineness in that I think jumped off the screen and people identified. Plus, the big one is when you marry someone, as you know, you marry their family.
Yep.
And it has to be you guys first, us first. That used to be a phrase with me and my wife, and I kind of brought that to the show. And I have to say, Melissa McCarthy, who I love, made it so safe because I knew how to do the funny stuff. I mean, we're comics.
Right.
You're going to know how to turn a line. You know what it sounds like. You know the beat. But the tender stuff, she made that so safe for me to be able to convey that stuff. And she was right there, connected, present. And I think that's why those scenes were so special. Yeah. I really do.
And you got
128 episodes.
After 30, almost, how many years in comedy? 20-something?
It took me, I started in 87. The show started in 2010. So whatever, 97.
23 years?
Yeah, 23. 23 to an overnight success. That's how that works.
Well, that's usually it's usually I'm a 20 to 25-year overnight
Well,
success.
they say comics, not anymore. Now, I mean, it's amazing what's happening now. I mean, the phone's like a slot machine. If you're sitting in the right spot, ba-bing.
We're talking about comics,
And
though.
well, there's a difference
Yes.
between popularity and art. And so that idea, most comics that hit their stride usually hit their stride after 37 because we've been on the road long enough. We've traveled enough places. We're funny in Alabama and we're funny in New York City. We're funny in California and we're funny in Denver. So that seasoning and that search for authenticity, I think that when the window opens, because of all that time you've put in, I think it elongates the window. So, but now I see it's amazing to me. I tell you, but there's some beautiful stories out there too. If we're going to call balls and strikes like on the internet, yeah, there's some people that probably shouldn't be as popular as they are. There are, but that's none of my business.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
But I look for other stories that amaze me. Like you do see comics that are at the top of their game who have mastered this. Like I think Bill Burr is the best guy doing it right now. I don't see anybody close to that guy. Bert Kreischer, his fun and loving appeal. Boom, that's that party thing, and who he is as a human. He's a kind human, and I think that came through really well. And then I think the most recent beautiful story of a veteran comic is Leanne. I mean, look, to have that happen at this time in your career is absolutely astounding.
To me, the
that's
likability factor of her is
but she's genuine. She's who she is, and
it
there's
transfers.
A place for that.
I'm a Bronx Italian,
right.
So there may be something she talks about or terminology she uses that I don't even pick up on.
Sure, because of the Southern, right?
But there's just something about her,
the genuine, the authentic.
that she's so who she is and so in her element. And seemingly so kind without knowing her personally.
She's that kind of person.
Right, but from the outside, and I go, I love this brand.
I
love whatever this, and people.
Authenticity.
Yeah, right.
Authenticity.
Yeah, and I think that's what I found for me the most. I was, in New York doing comedy for like 13 years.
Right.
And I always gave New York so much credit because you put in every situation. There's so many alternate rooms. I was doing hookah lounges, comedy. I was doing cafes, pop-up shows.
New York is the only place I've ever been in a club where an owner came up and said, whatever you do, don't say anything to table 4.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Those guys come in on Thursday, let them do whatever they want.
Right. That is so funny. That reminds me of like when Sinatra had to go squash a deal because somebody said something.
Who did that old joke about? I think it was Shecky Green. Said a long time ago. He said Frank Sinatra saved my life one night. He said that's enough, boys. He's had enough.
Right? Oh, that's funny. Yeah, it's rough out there, but
I like the video you did. You meet people and then you follow, and then I have to ask my son, how do I follow this person? Make sure they know I'm not ignoring them. I don't know. I just chose not to be a part of it, and I'm kind of glad I did, but I'm trying to learn to do it for business. But you did. I like the things. You're right. We were talking about a little earlier about how you do something. You try to do something really cool or funny, and that doesn't really get any. And then you do something where, again, authenticity comes through. There was something you were before a show. And you had a calzone that was like the size of a pant leg.
It was,
and you were just going, how am I going to eat this? How am I going to eat this?
From my chin to my stomach. I don't know. The owner's like, I got it for you. I'm like, and he was standing there, so I was like, I have to cut into this thing. But
that's the stuff, like that feels human to me.
Yes.
And I like that. And we need commonalities. Like that's everybody who would have ordered that thing would have said that thing. So I like those little things like that.
I think for me, it was just like I wanted it so bad, and you don't really find your voice. You don't really know what you're going to do those first 10 years.
Right.
And I remember I was talking to Colin Quinn, and I
that guy's brilliant.
I mean, one of my favorite. I can't even. It's like brilliant guy. And what I loved about him is that he was so smart, and even though he was Irish, it was still this very New York accent. And
well, you know the difference between the Irish and the Italians?
Let's hear it.
2 blocks.
Especially in New York. That's amazing. And he said, Tara, no matter what happens when you open your mouth, people are going to hear New York Italian. It doesn't make a difference what you're saying.
Right.
He's like, lean into it. It's who you are.
Yeah, it's who
you
are.
And he said, the more specific you are, and I've said this to people, my coffee talkers heard this a million times, but the more specific you are, the more universal, more
100.
universal you'll be. And it just kind of relieves me of the pressure of not sounding like this. I used to host New York Yankees games, and people would complain that my accent was too New York.
That's hilarious.
And I'm like,
have they heard Phil Rizzuto?
I'm like, but meanwhile, you had what's her name on the radio, Boston accent, you know, and I'm like, this is what I sound like. And I remember they did the worst thing I could do. It was like 2009, the opening of Yankee Stadium. I'm so excited I got this job, right? Working for the New York Yankees. I'm a Bronx girl. I'm on camera, and I Googled my name with the Yankees.
Never do that. Never.
I couldn't get out of bed. I was like, I am.
You know, that's so.
I was young though. I was in my 20s.
Well, that's the thing. There, you just brought up a great point. One of the things I've been talking about on stage is, I don't rip on the younger generation. I defend them. My son's 22, and I have deep talks with him about what's going on in his world. And we're that house where the friends come over and they know his buddies, I'll shoot them straight. Right. We're that house. And I always wanted to be that house, and we did that. But, you know, you think about all the things we went through in adolescence. Who am I going to be? Is anybody going to love me? How do I work in this world? What's my job going to be? How am I going to survive? Am I ever going to have a family? All that...
Did you just look at my journal?
Right, right. But you, all that, which is the normal freak out of growing up, and then you add social media on top of this, and then you add the state of the world on top. These kids are terrified, and there's no adults at the table saying, "Hey, I'm rooting for you. If you got a question, ask me." So I try to come at it from that angle because I think it's an easy layup to just rip on these kids when the adults are not setting an example.
Oh no.
You know what I mean?
100%.
So I try to
I made a career out of it.
But that's the thing. But we had that thing in Gen X where, you know, we knew how to chop at each other without harm. And I think social media took away the differential for kids to understand the difference between cruelty and sarcasm. And there is a difference. Sarcasm has a little love underneath it. That's why it don't hurt. This stuff, this habitual, let me say something mean to you, you know, we grew up kind of busting each other's stones to each other's face, but you never doubted that person loves me. You can't see a faceless idiot who's sitting in his basement eating Hot Pockets just saying mean stuff because he hates himself.
Right.
But it doesn't matter to us, but to them, the world they grew up in, it's everything to them. So I worked really hard on telling my son, none of that's real. The people in your life are real. And the best advice I ever got was the 5 friends you hang around is what you're going to be. You know, my dad used to say, you hang around the barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut. So be careful which one you go into. So what you put around you, it's, again, energy transference. That's who matters in your life. The people that can tell you the truth without weaponizing it. The people that can be with you and be quiet. The people that lift you up. That's what you're searching for. You know, and so this idea that these kids are somehow weak, I just think, and I think we have something to do with it as parents. I know I overcompensated, and we did that because no one, like
you did it for nobody did it for you, right?
No one was watching us, so we overcompensated and told them how wonderful they were, and then we let them loose in a bad acid trip. So this is on us too. We got to show up for these kids, I think.
I know. I think that was a real part of me leaving. Like I had a tour. It was my first. It was everything I worked for 13 years. And I was like, I'm gonna leave these middle schoolers in the Bronx. Right. What about? Where's this one kid who doesn't like to sit at the table? Who's he gonna eat lunch with? And they were like, you can't be every you. I'm like, but I felt this huge. And I still, to this day, be like, oh my God, I can't even go back to the school to pick up my stuff. Right. Like, I'd been in that community for 18 years, and I was like, leaving everything there, because maybe I'll just quit comedy in a few years and come back. Like, that's what a sense of responsibility I felt.
Never lose that.
Right.
Never, you know what? Never lose that. That is what makes us human. You know, this idea that we have no compassion for each other, that's why we're headed towards the cliff.
But everything.
The idea you have that. I still don't watch horrifying things. I won't watch horror movies. And I don't watch ugly stuff on it because I still, when I see something awful, I still want to go, oh my God, that's awful. I don't ever want to be so desensitized that I can't have compassion.
But everything you said, and you said about how we should think about these kids, that's a lesson. I think and I grew up in the Gen X, Bronx, divorced parents. It wasn't easy. But I really only came into that kind of like mentality or understanding of who I am and what's okay in my like 40s.
But that's what it takes.
And
that's
so
when you're
it's
supposed
like,
to be
so,
getting that
so
stuff.
it's like,
Yeah.
for me, it's like now everything rolls off.
Yeah.
I want, only a certain amount of people in my life, certain quality of people in my
Yes.
life. And it's like, I felt guilty not letting everybody in or not giving everybody access to me, even people who weren't good to me for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to stress with the kids in school, like the cyberbullying was one of the biggest things. I was like, but they don't hear you. Like we can tell
it's
so
hard.
much to this,
It's hard.
and and the thing is, I felt like I had a relatability factor to me with the kids at that point because I still grew up in that area. I was still this Bronx Italian, even though the majority of the school and where the area was at that point was mostly a Hispanic and Black and Albanian community. I still fit in more there than I do in LA.
You lead with your heart. That's why.
So to me it was like, oh, they're going to trust me more. And I think that for what you're saying right now, it's like even the people listening to this, everybody's always putting notes in the comments about like how they're learning these lessons now and how we really have to just keep relaying the message to the younger generations.
That's the part too. The World War II generation has died off. So, I was in Europe for the first time about 2 weeks ago. We went for 3 weeks. We've been talking about taking a trip forever.
You told me you were going.
So we're going to do it in two parts. We did Scotland, Ireland, England, and France. And then when my son graduates in December, that May, we're going to go back and do Italy, Spain, and Portugal. Those are that's my board that I want to fill. But for years I thought we had some Italian blood in us, and we did one of those gene things. It turns out somebody was lying somewhere. So, which always causes a weird drama too. But we didn't tell my father because it would have broke his heart because he thought we were part Italian. So, but I was.
That's funny.
My DNA came back and it was I'm 47% Scottish. I'm 38% Irish. I'm like 11% English, which is the criminal in me, and like 2% this, 2%. But my point is, when I went
very
over
white,
there,
is what he's saying. Yes.
Yeah. Well, Celtic. I don't like to be a white. I like to be Celtic.
Okay.
I like to have a little soul.
Yeah.
But when I was over there in Europe, they still have not forgotten that life is more important than work. They have their own problems, but they really have figured that out. And I was so blown away by when we hit the small villages, there's still a sense of community. Like they still help each other out. And there was a feeling like that we had kind of lost that. And I was talking to a guy, a Scottishman, when I was over there, and he goes, the crime in America is you forget your history every 50 years. And when you see all that history in Europe, you realize America is a screaming, entitled, awful teenager compared to Europe.
I know.
We just really are. We haven't learned all our lessons yet. And I just hope for the best, and I hope we come through it. But being there was restorative, and it was like, it can be different.
I'm going
we can
in a
coexist.
few weeks, and
Where are you going?
we're going
in Italy.
to
Or are you
Sicily.
Going,
Yes, only because I traveled last year. I was in Greece. The year before that, France.
I want to see Rome. I'll
I'm
tell you
taking
something
my
that'll
dad.
make you feel good.
Let me hear it.
Because I grew up around Italians.
Okay, well, we have to get to that.
My
really
first
quickly.
job was for 2 Sicilians and a Greek. And they said things to me that would put a millennial or a Gen Z in therapy. Like they would just be in a padded room. But they also taught me, okay, that's over. You messed up. There's consequences. Now let's go eat and get back to work.
Let's go eat. The most important thing, now we eat.
So grateful for those guys. And then my manager for 30 years on a handshake, Italian. And now I just signed with the new manager because he's stepped back a little bit. We've been together 30 years. He's 75 now. So he's like, and he and this was the beauty of having a long relationship with him. He actually made the call for me to our other friend, Judy Marmel. And Judy took me on. She was kind enough to take me on. So now I'm still lucky to have people surrounding me. And I think that's because of the way I've lived my life. The right people come into my life. Mm-hmm. But this idea that that we have this thing where we have to identify as this. I've given all that up over. Let me experience what you are. Let me be interested, because the thing I'd forgotten about stand up is if you're not feeding your eyes and your brain, you got nothing to say. Mm-hmm. And you're on the phone all day and just trying to come up with something. I can't sit and be funny. I have to go see something. Mm-hmm. do something, be a part of something, and then I can relay it to you.
Right.
And I had forgotten that, and Europe kind of gave that back.
Kind of like you have to live life to joke about it.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's a great way to say
Yeah.
it. Yes, that's it. I need input, but I need it up here. I need it in a book where I turn a page. I need it in seeing a piece of art. I need it in seeing people. I love to people watch. I need it in the experience of making it through 25 years of marriage and finally getting to the sweet spot. We earned it.
Yeah.
We're that old couple now. We've earned it.
Right.
We've
Not
earned
really,
it.
but yes.
We have earned that.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of that. And it's not easy. And that's another thing that they don't tell kids is that, you got to work for love. Love goes from passion to commitment. And if you can't make that turn, you ain't going to do the time. You just ain't. So this idea of those relatable things, those life things, that's what interests me. But I have to you got to feed your eyes and your
Absolutely.
ears. You know what I mean? I think that's what inspires us.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Sorry,
some
the coffee's
no.
getting me. I'm
glad.
rambling now.
I
apologize.
sometimes get so caught up in, and I've the putting out content and the writing and this, and I have to do this, and that I get spread so thin that I go, what am I going to joke about? I haven't done anything.
Right. And that's when I came back, I had the same feeling. I was like, I don't know, what am I saying? And then I thought, you got to go feed yourself some stuff to talk about. Where are you at in your life right now? What's happening? Get honest. Stop worrying about what the audience is going to think and just get honest.
Yes.
And from that, you find that path, and then you start to search out more. You say, like, the thing I've been doing this thing about England. Like, for example, we went to Windsor Castle, and I have a big thing for Arthurian legend. I love the myths of King Arthur, Merlin, Stonehenge. I love all that stuff. So we go into Windsor Castle, and you see the mason work, the dragons and the stuff on the walls and the bricks, and you walk in there. And first of all, you see the knight's armor back there. Most of those guys weighed like 180 pounds. It looks like a medium. So you feel good. So immediately you're like, I'd have kicked the knight's ass.
Right,
I would have
right.
kicked the knight's ass. But as you walk through, you see the wealth, and then it gets more and more, and then you start seeing historical pieces. You're like, that's not English, and that's not it. And by the time you leave the castle, you're like, fucking criminals.
Right.
Right, you know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
But you can't have that thought unless you go just open-minded, experience, and then it presents itself to you. And I think that's the stuff that connects us.
100%.
I wanted to tell you this, though. This is what I was saying. This will make you feel good because I know the pride with the Italians. You do everything the best all the time. I grew up around them.
Just the food.
But I couldn't wait to tell the food. You're right.
Yeah.
It's the only food you can eat every single day
Yeah.
of your life. But my manager's Italian. I couldn't wait to come back and tell him this. When we went to and I had the same feeling when we went to the castle in Versailles, Louis XIV, where Marie Antoinette, and by the time you leave that castle, you're like, they should have cut their heads off. But as they're walking through, they were telling us, the frescoes that are painted on the ceilings, they were always jealous that the Italian frescoes were top of the line, and they tried to match that quality, and they never quite could. So they cheated. They put tapestries on the floor, painted the tapestries, and then glued them to the roof, and then painted fake cracks. And then as soon as I told my manager right away with true Italian bravado, see, they steal everything from us. They steal everything from everything. They steal everything.
That is such the ethnic mentality. I think that was even in like my big fat Greek wedding. It's like, that was Greek. And it's like the Italians are like, that's Italian. We built it. No, Greek built it. And then you go to France and you're like, they stole this from Italy.
That's
but
right. But they stole their frescoes. All those frescoes are fake.
That is such a fun fact. Speaking of feeding your soul, I was going to ask you about Primanti Brothers. If that was only because I thought you were in Pittsburgh longer than you were.
That's a great story of that chain. The way that came to be is it's a working class story. They had opened when it originally opened many, many years ago. Was when Pittsburgh was still an industrious city. We were still building steel, making steel, and we were digging coal mines. So they opened this place, and it was open early, but nobody was coming in to eat because these guys were going to work at like 5 a.m., so they didn't have time to work. So the wife, this is the legend, the wife says that she comes in with loaves of Italian bread, and she cuts them up in slices, puts the whole meal on a sandwich. You get French fries, coleslaw, whatever meat and cheese you want. And then she wrapped them in wax paper. Suddenly, they started popping off the shelves. And that's what made that business popular because of the wife's idea to go, you know what? They're not coming in to eat. Wrap it all in one sandwich, and that's where that came from. And funny because down through the ages now, people go there instead of at 5 a.m. They go there at 2 a.m. so they can sober up to go home.
Right.
But it's the same deal. You get that big sandwich. It's a meal and two slices of bread.
I was like, I have to do Primanti's Brothers.
You got to do it once.
Yeah,
you got to do it once. There's other places in Pittsburgh. If you go,
I hear it's a great. I hear it's a great, a great city. Yeah,
it really is very working class. We have a big Italian, Irish, Polish influence up there, and but that city evolved beautifully. A lot of towns in the Midwest were wrecked after the steel industry shut down, the auto industry shut down. I mean, Detroit was decimated, Cleveland was decimated. So Pittsburgh was very resilient in the way that I think it was our mayor at the time said, all right, well, what do we have? We have 3 colleges here. We're going to be a college town. And then they started catering to that. And then they said, all right, we're going to build a medical community. And they built that. And then they went from that to a convention destination. And so they did what they do. They started repairing the leaks and just patching the holes and then doing something else. And now the city is beautiful. I mean, the rivers have recovered. It's got a bustling downtown, which you don't see too much anymore. It's very clean. And it still has its spot. It's just different. It even has a little film community up there now, which is kind of cool. Yeah. So we adapt pretty well. Right. We're pretty good at adapting.
Right. Excellent. I know that you were in Niagara Falls. I know you're on. Are you still touring now?
Yeah, I did a casino for a while
they
back.
Said so I have a residency in Niagara Falls at the Yuck Yucks there, and
that's awesome.
They said you were like hands down one of their favorite.
I did all right.
You did. So where else can people see you? Because I saw you only for like 20 minutes. I heard people saw you murder in Niagara.
Thank you for asking. I do okay. I try not to make you want your money back. Right. I do. I'm in a weird place because I'm trying to build a younger audience through Instagram. So I do 2 clubs a month as I try to build a new audience, which is hard. But it's neat to have younger people come see me and thank me for what I'm saying. Like, hey, thanks for defending us. Like, that's a nice feeling because I am a parent and I believe that. The other side of my audience was when I was on Mike and Molly. That was they're an older audience then. They're very old now. So once in a while, I'll go do a casino, which is an older demographic, and they come out, which I'm very grateful for, and that's a nice payday. But as I build this new thing, I got to go back into the clubs for little or no money and try to build that thing again. But look, if you're a real one, you're going to do it for a cheeseburger and you're going to do it for $100,000. It doesn't matter.
100%.
So it's in that you get to keep that creative flow going. You get to keep putting something out. You get to keep doing something because motion is, to me, what begets success. If you just sit at home and stare, you're done for. I mean, even my wife, after a week or two, will be like, hey, why don't you...
go do a spot.
Why don't you go you want to go tell your jokes? Maybe that'll make you feel better. Right.
I know. That's why I'm in L.A. My husband's like, I felt stagnant in New York after doing everything I think you could do.
Things.
And I go, oh, my God, what now? And I may have to go make myself uncomfortable.
Right. That's the key. It's that.
Because I'm not going to grow.
When I came back... I hadn't done it for 3 years, and this thing is like a golf game. You put your club down, your swing goes to shit, right? And then, how do I get that back? How do I? And I had to realize you're not the same guy. I was 380 pounds, took up a lot of the stage physically and metaphorically, and I literally had to learn kind of like a new noise. I'm still me, but I'm a different version of me. And then that on top of I couldn't remember my act, I couldn't remember how it went, but something came over me and went, you know this. You just got to go get hit in the face, and you're going to be fine. Once you get through that first couple times of no laughs and then you go, okay, now I'm just in the lab. Now I'm just going to work and trying to figure it out. But it is that uncomfortable thing that pushes you to the next thing. I agree with that 100%. Because if you can't walk through that, it's like I always tell my son, I never learned anything from a great show. A shitty show, there's 9 things you could have done.
Right.
You know what I mean? But a great show's like, hey, attaboy, but that does nothing.
I always say I have to sometimes just be bad to get good.
That's it.
And it's it's just like it's just what it is. And I come out here and I'm like, oh, this is so new. I hate being new. I hate that nobody knows me. I hate that I have to
keep embracing.
But look, I got Billy Gardell. in studio. So I'm
She's gonna
doing
have a
something
big
right.
listen. There'll be a big influencer next week. Just put up with me for this
No,
one. That's
definitely
all.
not. There definitely won't. This I don't want to
I'm
say
from
this.
Earth 1.
Maybe my favorite guest. I'm not supposed to have favorites. This was you were. I'm so glad
I'm
waited
glad we got to
for
do this,
months
too.
for you to do this.
It's very nice
Can you
to
tell
talk
people
to
where
you.
you're going to be now? Where you want to?
Yeah, I am. I'm just out on the road. You can see my tour dates on my Instagram thing and my Facebook
Billy Gardell
thing.
official.
Yes, and then and where am I going? I'm going to Naples, I think, and then I'm going to Boca, and then I'm going. I think I have a casino after that, but all those I hired some kid, so he knows where all that is. Just go on the
Naples
Instagram.
and Boca.
There you
That's
go.
my Italians. I have plenty of Italians in Naples and Boca. Is that Off the Hook Comedy Club?
That's Off the Hook,
Off the
and
Hook
then
in
what's
Naples.
the Boca Black
Boca
Box
Black
is after
Box,
that
yep.
one, I think. So yeah, so I do well down there too because older crowd and they've watched Mike and Molly.
Right.
So again, those are paydays, and then I'll go.
Bring your kids.
No, don't bring the kids unless they're 18. And then
Yeah, obviously.
and then I have
That's how old their kids are at that age.
what else I got coming up? I got a couple casinos coming up, but then I got some clubs that I've never been to. And, you have to humble yourself
Mm-hmm.
after that, too. You go in there and there's 50 people. And you're like, hey, all right, well, there's 50 that came, so I
Right.
can't punish them. So I love all that.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, honestly, you were so great when I saw you, and it was like I said,
That's kind,
really
thanks.
refreshing. It's also honest.
Thank you.
I'm not that nice.
I don't
I'm
get,
still,
no,
I'm
I've
still
seen
honest.
you. I don't get that you hold back.
Yeah,
so that's good.
yeah. All right, so we have to ask you because it's Coffee Talk. If you had to pick cappuccino or espresso,
If I had to pick, can I say latte?
you can't, not in Italy. You can't.
No, I can't. That's right. They don't even have that.
No, you can. And you can only have a cappuccino
If I'm
before
over-
12 o'clock.
Okay, if I'm over there, I got to say espresso.
Oh, all right.
I gotta say espresso because you get that's like taking the what's a train that doesn't stop a lot? What do they call those? The subways in New York. There's not a lot of stops on them.
when it's-
The direct.
The
or
direct,
whatever.
express.
The Express. All right,
yes.
That's
Literally,
that's
the
the
express.
one.
Yeah.
because you take 3 of those and you're like, yeah, let's
Yeah.
walk.
Right.
Let's
I
walk
could do
everywhere.
anything. Yeah,
Exactly.
you can do a lot of walking there. And then I was going to ask, Pirates or Steelers, are you?
I'm diehard all 3, and we stink all the way around the horn right now, so it's painful. Pirates stink. My Steelers, I'm not sure about. The Penguins have aged out, so this is just one of them down times. But you got to ride it out. But we won a lot, so you can't really.
Were you
complain.
rooting for the Dodgers last year against the Yankees? Because you're here.
No, I just enjoyed watching the games. My son is a Dodgers fan because I told him.
Well, he grew up here.
Well, he
How
was
long
born in
were you
LA. I
here?
just got 22. And I said, you were born here. Around 10, he's like, I want an LA team. I was born here. I said, all right, well, you could have the Dodgers or you could have the Kings, but you cannot, the Steelers are not negotiable. I'll throw you out of the house. So which one would you like? And he picked the Dodgers. So our house is a divided baseball teams because
Okay.
my son is from LA. He likes the Dodgers. I like my Pirates, and my wife is from Georgia, so she's a Braves fan. So there's divided countries in
Right.
the house when it comes to baseball.
It's a fun season. Oh, Billy, thank you so much.
Wait,
for
we got
coming.
one
Thank
more
you.
sauce or gravy.
Oh yeah.
What's that?
Even though you're not apparently Italian,
No.
Right. Even
But I
we're
grew
not
up in
gonna.
it.
Right.
I
We're
grew
not.
up in it.
Right.
but
Go
we're
ahead.
we'll
pretend the
go
DNA.
pre DNA test.
Pre DNA test. Would you
Pre-DNA.
put on your pasta? Would you put sauce or gravy?
Well, if I'm back in New York, it's sauce or it's gravy. If I'm in Pittsburgh, it's sauce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty
But
much.
New York's gravy.
Well, that's
New York was the first
that's a
place.
really judicious.
Well,
is
it's
it-
true.
You just want people to
but
say
make
sauce and
on
they're
a
not
personal
gonna.
level.
On a personal
personal
level,
level.
I would just say sauce. I
Good.
think.
See,
think
I
I'm a
won.
sauce guy.
I won this. I
You
guessed
won
it.
with somebody with no Italian in his
Yeah.
DNA.
Doesn't matter. He said sauce.
I was
That's
an
the right
operative.
answer.
I'm out in the open now. I was an operative. I was a double agent. I grew up with the Sicilians. What do you want me to do? I'll sign anything. Just let me out of here. I'm rolling on everybody.
Billy Gardell, everybody
Thank
on
you for
Coffee
having
Talk.
me.
Follow him and see him. You will thank me.
Coffee Talk.